Shortly after the publication of the second Druid Twilight book, Loom of Destiny, Book 2, friends and readers began to ask if I had thought about making them into audiobooks. Actually, I hadn't considered that. I couldn't wrap my head around how that might be done. After all, there were already close to 25 characters, and I thought of the project like producing a radio play with different actors playing the roles. From there, it got more complicated, so I just passed on the suggestion. Years later, after finishing the fourth book, I revisited the idea. I had produced other audiobooks by then, so I had a better understanding of the process. I realized that I didn't need several actors, just one really good narrator. I began to search and found the perfect person, Rebecca McKernan. Since the books are set primarily in Britain, her natural Welsh voice was perfect. Her curiosity and interest in other languages, accents, and dialects also became major pluses. I don't want to say much more. I would rather her tell us about herself and why she agreed to participate in the project. We sat down together virtually to chat about all of that, she in her home in Wales, and I in my home in Austin, Texas. Let me introduce you to Rebecca as we begin working on the fourth book, Destiny Unbound. All right, everyone, welcome. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to have a conversation with Rebecca McKernan. She is the narrator of the Druid Twilight books so far, and we are now starting on Destiny Unbound. Is that the one we're working with? That's the fourth one.
Fourth, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we've been working together for quite a while, and I find working with her to be fascinating and more than a little interesting. And I love her. I love her voice. I love her sense of humor. And so I wanted to have an opportunity to just kind of chat with her and get to know her a little better. Okay, so hey, Rebecca, how are you? How are things?
I'm well. Well, thank you, Gary. How are you doing? It's nice to talk to you as a person to person far across the earth that we are.
Yeah, that's true. We're over in Wales, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And
sunny North Wales, right in the middle of where your series is set, of course.
Ah, yeah. As I recall, you're somewhere near the Menai Strait. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about a 15-minute drive. I think you mentioned a place called Caerhun quite a lot. It's spelled Caerhun, and that is basically where I am. So I am right in the thick of the action.
Okay, wonderful. Someday I'm going to have to come over and visit. I keep threatening to do that.
You must. Yeah, you must.
Once we get this pestilence behind us, then we'll be able to plan a few things. And by the way, folks, we are recording this kind of near the end for the U.S. of the pandemic. And I, for one, have been sort of sequestered for about 14, 15 months. And just for context, where are you in the pandemic, Rebecca?
Oh, gosh, it's so difficult to say. But every time we think that we're reaching the end of it, we have another wave come and we're all locked up indoors again. We think we're coming to the end of the second wave, but now there's worry about a third wave beginning. So all things being equal, we are set to come out of lockdown in, I don't know, a month or so, 21st of June. But as with everything in this pandemic, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. That's true. Okay, well, on to more pleasant things.
Yeah.
I know that you've been a narrator for quite some time. So you've done narration and you also are a writer. So I'd like to hear a little bit about some of that as we're talking this evening. But how did you get into being a narrator?
It was really, really simple and really daft. Although my training is in musical theatre and acting and all sorts of performance, I had never even considered working as a voiceover artist or a narrator. And I was leaving a friend a voice message on WhatsApp. And she said to me, "You've got a really nice voice. Have you thought about doing this?" And I hadn't, so I did. And then I did it. It was as easy as that. So I just got myself set up, and this was about 4 years ago now. I've worked as a narrator full time for about 4 years. yeah, I just got myself set up with really basic equipment and started taking whatever projects were available that anyone wanted to risk by giving me with, a complete newbie, no experience, and just built up from there. But yeah, it was a very simple, one day I was doing one thing and then the next I was doing another, and it fit. It worked really well for me and I did all right at it.
Yeah, as I recall, you also had some training in opera. Is that correct?
Yeah, from a million years ago. Yeah, when I was a teenager, late teenager, I trained in opera. And although that's not a field I ever went into professionally, I think once your lungs have stretched to that capacity, until you have a baby living in them for 7 months, you maintain that level of, so long as you, it's like with anything, with any exercise, so long as you practice regularly. But I'd say I'm more of a jazz singer now at best.
All right, jazz singer. Okay, I have a friend who's a performance artist, and she also has a group. She and her husband have a group that they call Sin and Seraphim,
Oh, nice.
and her voice is just staggeringly good.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that attracted me to you. Not that you have any kind of training, but the sound of your voice is really quite. Well, I don't know. I'm stuck for a word. It's intriguing. I guess
Oh,
intriguing.
really?
Yeah, yeah. And I can hear you. Like I've said before, um, we've worked together for so long now that even that as I'm writing, I'm hearing my words in your voice.
Oh,
So
oh, that's really lovely. That really means a lot. Thank you.
mm, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Um, for myself, what what piqued your interest, if there was something, in narrating the Druid Twilight books in particular? I know you're doing several all at the same time, but what was it about the Druid Twilight offer that piqued your interest?
When I audition for work, which I'm actually doing less and less now, I'm being more selective at the outset. But when you and I started to work together, I was very keen on taking on as many different kinds of projects as I could, partly for the experience and partly because I've got really broad interests. But actually, once I got my teeth into your series, and actually even just from the audition, I loved how it was set in places that I could see because I was there. And you said right at the start of us working together that you were a language nerd. And I am a massive language nerd. I love the Latin. I love the Welsh. I love all the different things that I can really get involved in and and test myself. Like if you ask anyone who knows me, I just love languages. I speak a couple of them. Nothing. I barely speak English fluently these days, but anything that allows me to sort of really flex my muscles. Yeah, so that was the big draw. I've always liked history. Sorry, I was just checking for the spider then. I thought I could see it up there. I've always liked history, so that's an interest for me. But I suppose the big draw was the storytelling, the location, and the languages.
Ah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I have to. The reason that I okay, let me say this: your audition was the very first one that I received, um, and we were working at that time with Audible,
Yeah,
ACX,
that's right.
and so I received yours. I listened to it, and in the back of my mind, it just went click. This is the one,
Really?
and I couldn't really say why. It's just that you were the one, and I got a couple of others, maybe three, from men.
Yeah,
And what was a problem for me was that they would tell me that they could do um, different dialects, but
yeah.
they would have to work at it.
Ah, I
And
see.
whenever I heard yours, you hit all of the Gaelic words and the locations, and you did the Latin and the Gaelic, and you did the English and the different kind of voices, and you just nailed it.
Oh, that's really good to hear.
Yeah.
I remember, right at the start of this, you were tossing up between me and a chap, and I was going to ask you why you went for me as your narrator, if it was the gender thing, if you specifically decided that you wanted a woman, or if it was something else. So you've just answered that question. That's really interesting. I think a lot of that was serendipity, shall we say, the fact that, I live in the area that you largely set the first book. But as well as that, I grew up down the road from Cirencester, which is the sort of other main location in the first book. And I've naturally got quite an RP accent, so that was perfect for all the Romans. So yeah, I think I was just fortunate.
Yeah. Don't know about fortunate. Gifted may be the big thing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it was something else too about I part of why I was going back and forth between male and female is that I have worked with another narrator before, a guy, and I really enjoyed him, and he did some really really cool things with the books that he narrated. Um, but this one has a lot of strong female characters in it, and after I sat back and thought about it for a little while, it made sense to have a female voice to do the narration. And we're working on book 4, and I hope that you're able to see how the female roles are evolving.
Yeah.
And how I don't know how to put this, how the power is shifting from the masculine toward the feminine. I didn't do that on purpose. It's just how the story is actually unfolding. So I guess if I had a question behind that, it's like, how is that going? Do you get a sense that that's working well for you?
Um,
Honestly,
what do you mean? Do I get a sense that as a performer, the power shift is working, or do I feel it in the book?
in the book.
In the book, I'm not very far into book 4 yet. And I think from the very first book, the female characters have always been so strong. You've got the Roman characters who are all pretty evil, and they're all men. You don't have that balance of evil women, evil for want of a better word. I'm sort of generalizing, but I think it's quite fair to say in the case of the Romans in your book, they are all pretty nasty characters. You've got the character of Mab, who is a very strong, quite vicious character, but at the same time, I think it's kind of easy to see how she has unraveled to the point that she's got to. You don't know what's caused that unraveling, but you can sense that there was something that caused it. Whereas the Romans are blacker than that, are darker than that, and you can't see that there's very much justification to the way that they behave. And I think because of that, the women have always seemed very strong and a very pivotal part of the story. So I can't see an extreme shift of power because of that, because I've always seen the female roles as being very strong. That said, I can see how, I don't want to give anything away in the run up to book 4.
Oh, it's okay. You can give something away if you need to.
I don't know if I need to. Yeah, I can see how it would be going in the direction that you say.
Okay. Well, then in that case, I can't wait for you to reach the end of Unbound. Which one has been your favorite so far? I think you sort of hinted it. 2?
Yeah, hands down, book 2. There were parts of book 2, and I think a big part of it was because I love the character of Boudica. I just absolutely loved her. I loved how you told her. I loved knowing that Boudica was a real person. I loved not being sure what actually was true and what was from your imagination. I wanted it all to be true because I absolutely loved how you painted that character. She was amazing. So I found a lot of book 2 genuinely heartbreaking without going into too much detail. And, I think it's clear to hear the emotion in my voice, and it's real emotion when I'm narrating book 2. Book 2, hands down. I liked book 1 very much. I absolutely loved book two.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Um, that's book one and book two is one that I wrote years ago. And then whenever I decided to um, do audiobooks, I looked back at them and I went, no, this is not going to work. And so I brought aboard another editor and we went back and rewrote much of those two books.
Really?
Yeah. So that's like book Loom of Destiny 2.0. So,
Yeah. What was it that you found about the first writing of the book that wouldn't translate to audiobooks? Was there something in particular that didn't work?
well, to answer that, I have to go back to how this whole thing all unfolded, for
Yeah.
lack of a better phrase. Um, um, I didn't know where to begin. This project started at the end of 1999, into the 1990s, when I was doing some work with a woman who was a channel. She kind of opened the channel and let people speak through her, right? And she was teaching me how to do that, which I thought that was fascinating, so I wanted to know how to do it. And part of that practice, or as I was learning it, there was this character who showed up who identified himself as Orin.
Hmm.
Now, Orin, as you know, is a sort of a pivotal character in all the books. But whenever Orin came through, he was very heavy personality.
Yeah.
He was literally would crush my body whenever he would come in, so that I could hardly breathe. And the only thing I knew about him, we could kind of get about this character, was that he was a druid and he hated Romans. I mean, not just disliked. I mean, he hated them. And so there was a lot of history between him and the Romans as a druid. He also said that we have no idea what the Druids were, who they were, and where they came from. And so he's very adamant about that. So that was kind of the beginning. Now, this is the beginning of 2000, I think, whenever this was unfolding. And I just kind of stopped doing that practice. But there was this sort of omnipresent story that just kept going around in my mind over and over and over again. It was unfolding, and I got the impression that Orin was wanting me to tell his story.
Yeah.
After a while, it took probably 4 years of that. I just kind of got frustrated, and I said, okay, fine, I'm just going to write this down. And so I started to write down this story as it was unfolding, and I never had any intention whatsoever of publishing. I just had to get it out of my head. And so I started out thinking of it as like a series of novellas. So I could do like 4 novellas and kind of let people see them. That's why books 1 and 2 are divided into parts 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Okay. But after a while, it got to be like too big, and I had to do something with it. So I stopped at one point and decided, well, I'm just going to see what happens if I self-publish, just to see what happens. And people like it, and so I kept going, and that was where book 2 came from.
Right.
So all of that to say that whenever I went back to look at it before we started our project, it was terrible. I mean, the writing was not all that great. The grammar was awful, and I had to do something about that before I could actually turn it over to anybody to read it. It was embarrassing. So that's kind of where that 2.0 started.
Right.
And
I just love that. I love where it came from. When you tell me that story, I have goosebumps. I just absolutely love it.
Well, it's all true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think one thing and we talked about this a little bit before in emails, in that particular scene in book 2, which was the the climax, the big
Yeah.
battle between the Romans, and Boudicca's army.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. That's where things began to really ramp up for me. And the editor I had at the time, his name was Ray, kept sending it back to me, kept sending that scene back to me over and over again. He kept saying, "You can do better. You can do better.
Yeah.
You can do better. You can do better." It just pissed me off. But finally, I understood what he was saying, and the way that he did that, and the way that scene was finally written, completely changed how I write.
Really?
It really did. And so to this
Feel
day,
it though. When you read it, you can feel it in that scene. Like I can feel your nervous tension as you're writing that scene. It's just fantastic. And I think that's the best scene in all of the books that I've read so far in this series. It's just fantastic.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. So that's the story of Loom of Destiny. And at the end of it, I had no idea if I was going to do it anymore. But after, I think it was about 3 years, I realized that I'd fallen in love with the characters. And so that's where awakening started. And I just sat down one day and started writing. And just my writing is very much like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This story has got its own.
Know that feeling.
Yeah, I know you do. The story has its own momentum, and all I can do is hang on for dear life and do my best to make it interesting and readable.
Yeah, but I think that's...
Hello, we're back. I lost Rebecca there for a while, so now she's back. And unfortunately, I haven't got a clue what we were talking about before, so I'm going to change subjects altogether. So I know that you're a writer, and
I am.
What is the genre that you're working in?
I write very bleak dystopia. I write literary fiction rather than commercial fiction because I'm very good at emotion, less good at action.
Okay.
Yeah, I write stories that make you feel quite cold and a bit depressed. But sometimes they have an edge of hope. Sometimes.
Okay. Is it something I would like?
You are welcome to. I'm just finishing my 3rd book and it is my best writing so far. And you are very welcome to read it. I'm set to finish it tomorrow, completely redrafted, ready to send off,
Yeah. Are you doing it self-published or not?
I am not. I'm looking to be traditionally published. I have had an agent, a really good agent, just ready to bite for the last 2 books. And at the start of, sorry, that scratching is my dog. At the start of the pandemic, this agent was just about to take me on and then everything just went to pot. So I'm sort of back a few steps from where I was. But I don't think this is blind enthusiasm for my own work. I feel quite positive that this book is going to be the one to get this guy to bite.
Okay, very good. Well, best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't ever put my books out to traditional publication. Got too many rejection notices about articles and things that I've written, so
right.
A little bit gun shy, letting other people.
Oh, that's understandable. Yeah, I guess many years of working in performance has hardened me to any kind of rejection, and now I just see it as a challenge. Come on, bring it.
Okay. I wish I had that courage, but anyway. So. How did you get started with writing yourself?
I think it's something I've always done. I remember being, I don't know, I wouldn't have even been a teenager. I guess maybe 10, 11 years old, sat at my parents' massive old computer, the ones with the huge boxes on the side that take about half an hour just to dial up to. In fact, there probably wasn't even internet there. I'm giving my age away now, aren't I? But I remember just sitting at that computer, just writing stories. And even before that, when I go back to thinking when I was a kid, like highlighting particular lines that I liked in books, like I said, language nerd, book nerd. So I think it's just something that's always been in me. And then when I started my training as an actor, I'd always write short stories, short plays through college, through university. Never anything that I was particularly bothered about getting published, but it was just, it was an outlet. It was something that I knew I needed to do for my own creativity. I took a 5-year career break where I worked in travel, and I worked as a God, what was my job title? Something very boring. Media spokesperson for a responsible travel company, something like that. But part of that was that I got to do a lot of travel writing, got to do a lot of travel as well, very lucky. So I was published as a travel writer, which I think actually, looking back on it, is quite a difficult thing to do. So I should probably toot my own horn a bit more with that. And then once I finished my 5-year career break, got back into performance, I just knew that if I was going to come away from a steady wage and a regular job, I really needed to make it worth it. So that's when I started writing as well, properly writing with an intention to get published. And my first book was sort of the book of my heart because, well, I guess because it was my first book, it's like my baby. But I realized that it was not very publishable, despite the interest that I got from it, because the way that it's written is Cormac McCarthy. Have you read any Cormac McCarthy? He takes out punctuation. He wrote The Road. He wrote No Country for Old Men. He takes out punctuation and he writes in a way that is not very traditional, which he can do because he's Cormac McCarthy. Me, it wasn't so well picked up. And looking back at it, I understand why. It was a good book, but it wasn't a great book. And my writing has gradually progressed from then. And now I think the content is more relatable. It is more interesting. It's more commercially viable, but it's still really coming from my own heart. Like I was saying before, I'm not very good at writing action. So not a great deal tends to happen in my books, but my writing comes from my own experience, which tends to be distorted to fit whatever dystopian world I've created. I'm refining it, as we do with anything, but especially with writing. If we're going to progress, then we have to get better. And I feel like that's what I'm doing, but time will tell.
Yeah. I completely understand what you're talking about. And for myself, my writing must have started early because I let my dad read the first couple of books, and he really liked it. He had some actually intelligent questions to ask, and actually it surprised me. But he also said that I always knew that you'd do something with writing because you were writing since you were a kid.
Really?
And then I remembered that I really did. I would have my own little newspaper thing that I would do, and
fantastic!
And, show him what it is, and it's of course all lies, but they're good stories. I remember starting so many stories and short stories and things like that. It was fun to do, but it went nowhere. I've started so many books I can't even remember, but they go nowhere. But
I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's just like we just keep doing it. We keep doing it, and we keep practicing, and we keep practicing, and eventually it either goes somewhere or it doesn't.
Yeah, and it's an insane level of commitment as well, because it's not just like you can't just dip in and write a page every day. Or maybe some people can. I can't work like that. If I'm going to commit to it, I have to properly do it. So in the past, I've started books, but I've just been sort of meandering about the idea of them. I think of a title and then I try to create a book around it, something like that. I have a vague concept, but the first time it really worked for me, my second book, was when and this sounds so basic, but it's when I plotted the whole book out rather than just this sort of transient stream of thought that my first book was. It was so much easier and created a much easier, much better book, much more interesting book. Sounds so basic, but for me, I have to put 100% of my commitment to it. And I even struggle to work as a narrator and write at the same time, which is why I'm doing less narrating at the moment. In fact, yours is the only book that I'm currently recording. It's nice that I'm able to focus more intentionally on what I'm recording and then have more time to do my own writing. So lost my train of thought.
Well, it's okay. Glad to be of service, ma'am. I'm very pleased that we're continuing to do this together.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, and I remember too, whenever I was a teenager, I don't know, close around 20, I guess, I had a job at a bookstore. And whenever we would take a break, I would go down to the local, burger place in the mall that I was working in, and I would sit and I would watch people, and I carried a notebook with me everywhere I went. So I had my
Yeah.
pencil and notebook, and so I would just write down impressions.
Yeah.
So
Oh my goodness, me too. I used to do
yeah,
that when I was at uni.
I think a lot of us do. It's like I felt like I needed to learn people,
Yeah.
and the only way to really learn people, not me, is to watch what they do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just kind of make notes. So, speaking for myself and possibly for you, the characters that I write don't come directly from those observations, but there's the observations are somewhere in here,
Yeah.
and so I can create a character around how that character might perceive the world.
Yeah.
And so I really I enjoy doing that. I think
Yeah.
that's why I can't stop, because I keep discovering new characters. And as you know, I introduce new characters all the time, and you're going to be fascinated by one at the end of that book you're doing,
Ooh.
because she showed up just out of nowhere at the very end of the book, and you never do that, right?
Ah, interesting.
You never introduce a character at the end of a book, because where's that character going to go, right?
Yeah.
So of course she is the launch pad for the next one, the book 5.
Fantastic. And that's book 5. That's Legend.
Yes, yeah. So
Oh, with Walter's little cameo at the back.
uh,
Oh, I was so happy with that.
oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad.
I can't wait till he's old enough to read that himself.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think through all the things that I really wanted to ask you. I think I got most of them done, except for one. Some people who may see this video that we're doing might say, "Oh, that's really cool. I would like to be a narrator."
Uh-huh.
How do you go about doing that? I mean, what kind of advice would you give to someone who just wants to, get started somewhere?
It's a question I've been asked a few times by friends or, people who have got in touch with me because they've been interested in becoming a narrator. It's not for the faint-hearted. I would say it's not something that can really be done part-time, because you'd be starting your own business. And as with any business, you need to give 100% to it. So you can't expect to go in half-hearted and get good results. That's my sort of word of warning, because I've had a few people say, "Oh, can I do it to make a little bit of cash on the side?" No, no, you can't. You'll start and you'll make very little money, and you have to commit to the fact that you've started a new business and you're going to be poor for a while, because it's not just any new business; it's an artistic business, and artists don't traditionally make a great deal of money. Once you've committed to that, get yourself a laptop. Get yourself some decent headphones, a decent microphone, and be prepared to work on quite a lot of books that you potentially don't have that much interest in, and wouldn't necessarily buy yourself. And have an open mind, because even though that's going to happen, you might find that you really like something that you hadn't thought about before. What advice would I give? What I did, and I can't speak for everybody, but what I did and what has worked for me was that at the beginning, I just took on as many projects as I could manage. I didn't make a very good job out of all of them because I was just starting out. And if you listen to my earliest work, and I am ever so sorry to the people that I worked with and for, it's not my best work. My work now is far, far, far superior to that. But I started and I got as much experience as I could, and I made as many contacts as I could, because that is just as important as the work that you're putting out there. And I just grew from that, and I learned. And I'm always reading anyway, because it's a passion. And I'm always happy to take on feedback. That's one side of it. I think the other side is, as with anything in the performing arts, you do have to have a bit of a thicker skin, because it is subjective. Not everybody's going to like your voice. I really liked when you said earlier that you like the qualities of my voice, because I have a huge amount of a large American audience who really hate my voice. The amount of terrible reviews I get because I have a fake British accent, it's real. This is how I actually talk. I get a lot of comments about that. I don't know if it's just a sort of I don't know, maybe there's a quality in my voice that is not palatable to some people, but it's fine. That's fine. Art is subjective, and I recognize that not everybody is going to like my work. So long as I like my work and you like my work, you the rights holder, and some of you the audience, that's enough for me. So long as I can be proud now of what I do. I'm at a stage now where I can take the projects on with the people that I enjoy working with, you and a handful of others, and that's what's more important to me. But you have to get to that point, and it's taken me 4 years to get to this point, maybe 3 years or something. So yeah, what would the advice be? Do as much work as you can for as little money as you can possibly make it work for, and build up from that.
It sounds like a real job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard what you said about the fake accent, and I never heard that at all. But one of the things that I'm very impressed with is the way that you can handle different accents, and your talent for infusing the characters with an accent or dialect from the location that they are found. I found that just fascinating. Sometimes I can't tell the difference, but I'm guessing you can, and other folks who understand Great Britain be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I thought was one of your strong points, and I appreciate a lot, because the characters it deepens the character to have the different voices, and it also creates groups of characters who may come from the same place, and they know each other from a whole different kind of context.
Yeah.
So what I believe that your narration brings to the book is that it helps to deepen the characters through your vocal treatment of them.
Yeah. I do have a confession. Whereas most of my accents with the series are pretty spot on, there's an area of the UK which I just can't do. It is so difficult, and it's the Semnothioi. It's where they're based. They're based sort of around East Anglia, the same as Boudica. It looks like the UK's bum. It's that bulge off of the UK. It's so difficult, and it's so similar to the area that I grew up, which is the West Country, but there are just slight differences in the length of the vowels and the consonants. And my partner is from East Anglia, and when he hears my East Anglian accent, he says that's West Country. I can't do it, but what I've done is group them all together in that area, so at least that I narrate East Anglia as West Country, which anyone from Norwich, whatever, I'm ever so sorry, but I can't do it. I've tried to be as true as I can, but that's my disclaimer.
And I've had a couple of conversations with a woman from Norwich. It's very it is a different kind of a whole different dialect, a different vocal posture. I mean, it's just very, very different.
Yeah, it's somewhere between West Country and Essex, and so that's almost like what's the word that caricatured Cockney Essex is sort of like. So yeah, the two things combined, I just can't do them. I can't get my head around it. I can't get my mouth around it.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the struggle. I can't wait to see what you do with Irish and Legend.
Oh, I love Irish. And I suppose as well, in the period that you are writing about, it would be Republic of Irish, which personally I find much easier than the Northern Irish accent, which I believe would have been influenced by Britain going into Ireland, starting everything that they started over there. Britain, England, I mean. So I think at the stage that you're writing at, probably the whole country would have been Republic, which means I'm safe.
Yeah, I think one of the good things about the writing in this particular time frame is that, particularly in Ireland, there is no history.
Right.
The only history that we get far back as we can go is somewhere in the hundreds, with the invasion of the Christians beginning to come in, and they're doing their writing. Right. And so I get to make up everything.
Fantastic.
So to just kind of tease Legend a little bit, what I notice is that since there's nothing to research in terms of legends and mythology and that sort of thing, that and even the people who know it say there's nothing all the way back past that. So everything you learn is about an English viewpoint.
Right.
And so what that did was it freed me up to look at where did the legends that they're talking about, where did the legends come from?
Yeah.
So hence the name of the book, Legend.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
I really get a chance to push into where do the stories come from? If we don't have any history, what did that look like? So
And you can create that all yourself, can you? Because what do you mean? There's just no evidence of like human history before that.
well, we know there were people
That's so
there.
interesting.
Yeah, we know there were people there, but we know nothing about them. And
Really?
to give you a little bit more of a taste of it, the Irish had an oral history. So they passed their stories on and on for generation after generation after generation. And they resisted writing things down in any form at all. And I thought that was kind of weird. But whenever I learned why they did that, it makes sense.
Right.
The reason is that words have multiple different meanings. And the sounds and the variations of the sounds in the words themselves changes the meaning.
Wow.
Furthermore, the way that the words are linked together also changes the meaning.
Wow.
Okay, so there's not there's no like Rosetta Stone as to what the stories actually are saying, because the words will vary from one place to another, one story to another, one location to another.
My goodness.
So one of the teachers that I picked up there in the Irish pagan school points out, and I don't know if it's true, but that's what she says, that when you're in Ireland, you're trying to find somewhere, and you stop in and ask one of the natives there, they don't say, well, go to this point, go down 3 miles here, turn left, go 4 miles. And, they say, well, go down to the tree and turn left. And then you'll find another bunch of bushes over there. And then you go from there to the next place. And what they're trying to do
so it's all very visual.
And they are introducing you to the land. So you're not just going from point to point to point like you would do if you had a map.
Yeah, yeah.
You're exploring the land as you go, and you're trying to figure out all the different signposts that they're telling you. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I find it fascinating.
Well, I'm off to Northern Ireland next week, so I shall ask for directions and let you know what I get.
Oh, okay. That would be fun. Let's see. Well, thank you for letting me divert to a book that's a little ahead of you.
Oh, that's all right. It's a pleasure. Sorry, I lost you for a second then.
Yeah, you froze too, but it's okay. Technology. So I think I'm at the end of my list of things that I wanted to be sure and touch base with. Is there anything that you would like to ask me in particular?
I mean, the things that I had thought of, we've sort of spoken naturally about anyway. Do you have a favorite book that you've written so far of this series?
Actually, no.
No.
Each one is my favorite.
Yeah.
And so, you're talking about book 2 as being your favorite, and the editor's talking about Awakening as being her favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm like, but I'm getting better.
Yeah.
So it's kind of disappointing that the latest one isn't the best one. But, that's my ego.
But according to who?
That's right. That's my ego talking, right? So I think that's I have to say that the one that I'm currently writing is my favorite in that moment.
Yeah. And that will be book 6, will it?
Yeah, I'm about third chapter, book 6.
Right.
And I think I really like this one, book 6, because dropping back real quickly, the first 2 books had some structure to them.
Yeah.
Because there was Oren wanting to tell his story.
Yeah.
Okay. Awakening and Unbound have a much more loose structure, a much looser structure, because I'm kind of feeling my way through the story as it goes. And it's one of those things where I'll be writing and I'll be creating the scene and things that are going on, and I have no idea what this is about. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely none. And I'm sitting there, I'm writing it, and I'm saying, where is this going?
Uh,
I've got no idea. So, a week later or a chapter later, then something comes in and I go, oh, that's what that was about. Now I know, and all the connections start getting made. But it's a little bit like wandering in the desert or wandering the forest is probably a better analogy, but not really knowing what's around the corner.
yeah.
And that can be exciting, a little bit frustrating, but I'm going for the excitement part.
Yeah. And is this how you're finding you're writing the current book that you're working on?
Well, pretty much. Yeah, Legend had its own structure in a way because it's all about Ireland
Right.
and exploring what prehistory of Ireland looked like within the context of Kedwin and Brianna and Murin. And this one, it's kind of bifurcating between Scotland and Denmark.
Oh my God, Denmark, what are you doing to me?
I know. Offering you challenges.
Oh my gosh, I did say I like them.
So I have no idea what Danish sounds like.
Oh, do you know what? It sounds exactly the same as Irish, funnily enough. Basically the same, same accent completely.
And that doesn't surprise me given the history that I'm discovering about how
I'm completely joking, by the way. I'm just putting a disclaimer out for my terrible Danish accent that you're bound to hear.
Yeah, but that's okay. I keep that in my brain, and you're forgiven for all.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess as a little bit of an aside, I realized just the other day, and I'm not sure what the spark of was that, but as I'm looking at the places where the books have gone, you got England, you got Scotland, over to Ireland, now jumping to Denmark, that actually traces my lineage. Because my genetics go through Ireland to Scandinavia.
Ah, how funny. Yeah, mine are in Scandinavia as well.
Yeah, I really hadn't realized that until I just kind of woke up one morning and said, oh my God, I am
how interesting.
Exploring my ancestry.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess the reason I mentioned that is that the work that we're doing as writers is really much bigger than we are.
Yeah.
The stories that we're telling, they're autobiographical in a way, at least in my case. I don't know about you with your dark dystopian.
No, but still, you're telling the story of characters that, you're talking about going and looking at people, but still a lot of it comes from yourself and your own experience. So, and for me, a lot of my work is cathartic. If we've all had a lot of experiences that we need to come to terms with, for want of a better word. And for me, a good way of doing that is write them, get them out of my system, write them, and then they're there. You can deal with it from that point. So yeah, definitely autobiographical in a sense.
I think so. In a way, the only people we have to write about are ourselves.
Yeah.
Especially with fiction.
Yeah.
Okay. Geez. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed our chat together. I'm hoping we can do it again sometime.
I would like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Very good. So, all right. I guess I will let you go. I know it's getting late there now. It's about 9 o'clock or 9:30.
9:30. Yeah, it's my bedtime.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. I enjoyed our conversation, and I will be back in touch.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you, Gary. Well, I should be recording more for you on Friday. So
okay, wonderful.
Keep your ears peeled.
All right. Take care.
Thanks very much.